Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another Buddy webinar. Today's topic is human versus machine, how to achieve testing balance without ruining your budget. And with me, I have a true expert on not ruining our budget, Karol Topolski. Karol, tell us a few words about yourself.
Sure. So, hello everyone. My name is Carol, and I'm an engineering manager in global app testing. And yeah, today we're going to put two very different things in the one ring. We're going to talk about humans versus machines when it comes to the topic of the software testing. So I hope you will have a fun, learn something.
And my name is Maciek Palmowski. I work here at Buddy as a WordPress ambassador, and I am, I hope, your favorite webinar host. So today's topic is quite interesting, especially that very often we had a chance to discuss about how important testing is, how about different methods, but overall, every time we were mostly talking about automated testing in different ways, from unit testing, for functional testing, and ending with end-to-end testing. And today we will talk about something different because we will talk about how to automate manual testing. So I really can't wait for Carol to say a bit more about this. And before we go further, uh, if you have any questions regarding today's webinar, don't hesitate to use the comment section on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, and just ask them. We'll try to answer most of them, at least during the Q&A session in the end. And if you like what we are doing, don't forget to press the subscribe button on YouTube. So, Carol, the scene is yours.
Thank you very much, Maciek. Let's go. Okay, so I'm pretty sure all of you are familiar with the term of automated testing. Maciek already mentioned at least a couple of different sides to the automated testing, unit testing, functional testing, end-to-end testing, all of these shades of testing. However, today I'm going to put the automated testing in ring with one other contester, and that's crowd testing. So crowd testing might be an exotic term, but the truth is that the name really tells the story. So how can you imagine it? Is like maybe some of you already uses like the Amazon cloud services. So using any kind of cloud is pretty cool, right? You input your data, you get the result back. Pretty cool. You don't have to worry about pretty much anything apart from configuring this. And once you have it running, it's pretty much troubleless. So imagine like a cloud, but not consisting of machines, instead consisting of the testers, the humans. And the model doesn't really change. You input your test requirements, and what you get back are the test results. So how to do that? How can you actually leverage this crowd to gain some money back? So first things first, let me tell you about the global app testing. So obviously I work there. I'm an engineering manager at global app testing. And what we do, well, you might guess, we're a crowd testing company. We serve all kinds of customers, from small software as a service companies to large enterprises. And the way that we want to stand out is we want to be integrated. And I know that integration is a buzzword pretty much nowadays. Everything is integrated, IoT, all of this stuff. We try to put this integration word into an actual use when it comes to this crowd testing, the testers crowd. So I'm not going to read the slides because it's pointless. What I want you to remember is that not only is this already embedded in the tools that we use, it's also pretty scalable. And what do I mean by scalable? Is that, well, the word crowd already means more than few people. In our case, it means more like 60,000 people worldwide, present in nearly 200 countries. And this brings some of the benefits to the table, because you might as well run your test at 3 a.m. Guess what? It's going to be 3 p.m. somewhere in the world, or other business hour. So there's going to be testers that aren't sleeping, that are working. These are their business hours, and they will be able to test your application. And it doesn't end here, because having testers in multiple countries also brings some of the cultural value back. So these testers will be able to feedback your application based on what's the culture inside their country. And also, some countries aren't as advanced as the first world countries. And they might have some devices that's already very outdated, in our perspective, but they're very much used elsewhere in the world. So by having this large crowd of 60,000 testers covering pretty much worldwide, you're able to scale with your business and pretty much scale with other businesses as well. So having this out of the table, let's talk about the integrations. So as I mentioned, we're likely to be already in the tools that you use, including, of course, Buddy. And what you can see here is some standard ticket management systems, Jira, Trello. You can see some communication tools like Slack. You can see some CI systems like Buddy. But you can also see some of the logos that come from the testing community. And these are the test management systems. And why on earth would we show what might be our competitors? Is because they really aren't our competitors. They are our partners, because we try to achieve this Unix philosophy where the tool does one thing and does it right. So we do crowd testing, and we try to do crowd testing right. So that means that we are not bothering the test management, error monitoring, test infrastructure, all of that. Our partners can take care of that. We focus on what matters. We focus on the crowd testing. And obviously there's no need to install like any other software already embedded inside of the systems. That goes without saying. Okay, so now that you know a little bit more about the global app testing and about the premise of the crowd testing, let's actually talk about consolidated convenience. So I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with the technology radar from the ThoughtWorks. And in one of the recent releases of the technology radar, there has been coined a term called consolidated convenience. The full term is consolidated convenience over best-in-class that match integrated toolset. That means that as much as it'd like to be a Google or Meta and have these shiny tools from Google and Meta that they use, the truth is you're likely not Google and you're likely not Meta and you likely don't need all of this complicated tooling. You're probably perfectly good with the tools that you already have. And that means that the systems that's already embedded inside your tooling are much more valuable in terms of wasted time and efforts than all of this shiny tooling that you need to install, configure, and then you can feel like Google. Okay, so we covered a bit of global app testing, we covered a bit of consolidated convenience. Let's talk about some statistics. Let's talk about the state of the manual testing. So I will be showing you some of the diagrams in this presentation. They come from the test trail annual survey results from 2021 and 2022. Test trail is a test case management system, and year by year they do their survey and they ask respondents some difficult questions to answer. And this might be one of the most interesting. So starting 2018, they started asking the respondents a question of how much, in terms of percentage, let's say code coverage, they have covered with the tests, and how much would they like to have covered with the tests in the next year. And as you can see, people have ambitions, 20% sounds real. The unfortunate thing is that sounds real doesn't work. So there seems to be some kind of a problem. So what's the problem with automated testing? Like, what's wrong? Here's another slide from this survey, and it's, simple question. What's your team top 3 to 5 biggest challenges? It shouldn't be a problem. And let's see, you have developing automated testers on the first position, and that's already a bit puzzling. But on the second position, you have having enough time to complete QA tasks, which starts to make sense. How can you write automated tests if you don't even have time to complete manual testing. Like, you're not a time wizard. And the further we go, the worse it gets. End-to-end testing across integrated systems, obviously a very hard thing. Managing data and testing environments, another hard thing, to get right. And I guess you can say that, all right, sure, we have budget, we have, humans, let's just hire more QAs. But the problem is that these people, they did have a budget. Actually, in 2019, global automation market size was $12.6 billion, and it's estimated to be $28 billion by 2024. So money is not the problem. These factors are the problem, and it seems like hiring, additional QAs doesn't really seem to work. Like, I know that, if there are any engineers here, and I assume there does, you're well aware, of explaining to the product owners or product managers that 9 women cannot deliver baby in 1 month. That seems to be the case with QA as well. Sure, you can hire additional QA engineers, but the time to onboard, the time to understand the system, understand the tooling, the adoption, it all takes time. So that's the ideal ratio. So you have mostly automated tests, and now let's say there are some edge cases, maybe impossible to automate tests. And I know there's nothing impossible, but try automating end-to-end tests across Jira, GitHub, and 2 other tools. That's based on Selenium selectors, and yeah, good luck with that. It's not that simple actually.
It won't work, let's be honest, it just won't work.
No, it won't. Like data test ID, sure, data test ID, guess what, can change as well. So yeah, it's not going to be that simple. But when you think about it, sure, okay, so I can cover most of my code with automated tests, and then some of the end-to-end testing across the integrations, yeah, I can have dedicated QA engineer do that. So that's the ideal testing ratio. But quoting tunnels, reality is often disappointing, and there's a gap, and the gap rises. Because in order to maintain your test suite, you need to write new tests. And when you're focusing on getting this product right and pushing to the time to market, you might cut some corners, and some tests might be these corners. But it doesn't really end here, because there's one more big trouble, which is called flaky tests. And I'm sure most of you are aware of the flaky tests, but simple definition is flaky test is the test that will pass once and then will fail once. Sometimes will pass, sometimes will fail. You don't know. Friday evening deploy, don't do that, by the way. You press merge, the test, which was passing for the 4 days a week, suddenly fails. Not a pleasant feeling. And you might feel like, all right, flaky tests, like I have 1, maybe 2 flaky tests. They shouldn't, hold the release. So let's fall back to statistics again. And now you will be able to see how big of a problem is this. So both Microsoft and Google estimate that over 1/3 of failed builds are due to the flaky tests. And in order to bring you even more numbers, at Google, they measured 115,000 test targets that at least passed and failed once. And out of all these 115,000, 41% were flaky. At Google has a shit ton of money. If they could buy, less flakiness, they probably will. And Microsoft, they measured 4,000 distinct builds, sampled from the distributed build system, and out of this 4,000, 26% failed due to flakiness. So it's not 1 or 2 tests. The problem is real, and it's not only inside your startup or inside your company. The big 4 also have this problem, and there's no clear answer. So well, the reality, seems like you can't really automate everything, and there's always going to be some problem with the automated tests. Given, I don't know, it will be flaky. It won't be written yet. That's also very much of a problem.
That's the biggest problem, let's be honest.
Yeah, right. Also, end-to-end testing across integrated systems, something will change and the test will become flaky. It's hard. In general, it's hard. And it's as hard that the DORA, the DevOps Research and Assessment Institute, working side by side with Google, actually coined the term of the deployment pain. And the deployment pain is defined as a measure of fear and anxiety that you as an engineer feel when you push code to production. So, it even has its fancy name. It has to be a problem if it gets fancy name. So imagine that. You want to go home, it's like 5 p.m., you want to deploy your stuff. And even if you have great test coverage, there's always this feeling of hesitation of merging at 5 p.m. You'd rather merge tomorrow morning than merge today afternoon, aren't you? And that's the deployment pain. And we'll experience it. I experience it daily. It's here. And unless you merge and then you log into production and you click to ensure that everything is right and only then go home, you will feel this weird anxiety. So, it's a problem. So now that we have problem definition, let's deal with some common myths about the manual testing. So the first one, the most obvious, at least for me, is that manual testing is slower than automated tests. And I mean, it's obvious, how long does your pipeline take at Buddy? 4 minutes, 5 minutes? The testing probably runs on what? 2 minutes? 4, 10? It's not 4 hours, as it is in the crowd testing. So what gives? But is this right, though? So we're going to talk a little bit of maths, but don't worry. There are the abbreviations, but I will explain to you, so don't worry. So first things first, this is the formula for calculating the true time of cost of testing. Right now we're dealing with time. So first, the ET is the execution time. So we know automated is faster because no human can click as fast as your Selenium WebDriver does. Not possible. But there are 2 other factors. The second one is a setup time. So how difficult is your test to build? And we're talking here about, setting up the testing environment, maybe, loading some anonymized data from production, to try to measure how it works at scale. Maybe testing your database migrations. It's not that simple stuff to test. So setting up the environment for the test to run might be tricky. And, the larger your test suite, the more likely you are to divide it into, a few brackets of the tests, so you can run them parallelized. And then you get the setup time again and again per each environment you're building. That costs time. Then we have the magic N, and N here is number of times we're going to use this test. So for example, if you push to production, 10 times daily, and this test is part of your test suite, you're going to run it 10 times. Obvious, but how likely is the part of the product that this test is covering to change? And the answer is, the bigger your organization, the bigger your engineering department, and suddenly you don't work in one team, you work in 4 teams or 5 teams, this becomes a little bit higher risk. And with the time, it's doomed to become flaky unless you spend some time dedicated to maintaining your test suite. So as you can see, the time cost of testing not really only limited to how fast your runners go on CI. And as you know, time equals money. So we already talked about the time, but now let's add some money into it. So I think you're pretty much aware that the developers are paid far more than the QA engineers, at least typically. So now if you multiply it by how much an hour of a developer costs versus how much an hour of a QA engineer costs, now it becomes even more of a problem because you're burning through your budget. And it's not only about budget. Keep in mind that every hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, your developers spend debugging the flaky test, they are not writing something that will get your product to the market. And there's this Murphy's law, and the test may become flaky, I don't know, day before the product demo to the investors. It's a real thing. Murphy's law is unfortunately very much real. So, now think about, cost of the time, multiplied by cost of the money, it becomes it becomes costly, but there's also second order effects. So there's this popular term known context switching, and it's no longer, inspiring to anyone that meeting costs developer more times than the salespeople. But when you think about it, how much time it takes for a developer to context switch between working on the feature in one part of the code and then being forced to abruptly start working on something other, on, for example, debugging the flaky test that holds your release. And then once you're done with it, context switching again to working on the product, there's a lot of time wasted. And also lots of the effort wasted. Because let's be real, brain power is also a thing. And after debugging a flaky test, usually you are very low on this brain power, usually. So that's it what I had from the theory. Now it's going to be a demo time. So what we will do during this demo is, thank you very much, Maciek, Magic Touch. So what you can see here is 3 simple pipelines I built on my account under the very cryptic name of buddy.works try. All of these pipelines will be shared with you after the YAMLs, the readmes, all of the explanation. We're going to focus on the most feature-rich one, which is GitHub integration testing. So let me switch. So first things first, this buddy account is connected to my repository called buddy.works try. The code is nothing special. It's just some Ruby gem I had in my machine. Doesn't matter. What matters is that we have a pull request. We have a pull request for buddy webinar. And there is a change, very simple one, added comment with hello. So now I will present to you how we can test this code on the PR using the buddy and global app testing. So first things first, I'm going to act as a buddy user. So I'm going to go into my GitHub integration test. I've defined an action. Don't worry, it will be shared with you afterwards. The most important thing is that this action isn't really anything special. All it does is an JSON request to our API. So no biggie, pretty simple. And don't worry about the attributes in the JSON. All will be provided in the documentation. Okay, so once we have it, as you can see, I have got the JSON file here, and it's something that I embedded inside the file system. And it's going to be, just very, very simple data, nothing enlightening, just, some fancy lorem from the testing world. All right, we have explanation behind us. So let's actually run the pipeline and hope that, this thing called live testing actually works. Okay. So let's see the logs.
And of course, this is the moment when we have a second to talk while looking at how
exactly.
beautiful. Oh, that's it. That's so
cool. Buddy is pretty fast, isn't it?
This is the magic of cache.
Yeah, prepare environment, 0 time, right? Okay, so what changed in our pull request is that I get this message pending, your testing has started. As you can see, this is my avatar, mostly because it uses my GitHub access token. Doesn't matter. But what's cool is that when you go to the pull request list, there's going to be this yellow dot. When on hover, it will see that your testing has started. And of course, you can configure your merge requests to only be mergeable once all the checks are completed. And the checks uses a commit status API from GitHub. Okay, so the testing has started. So now it would be nice to actually have someone test it for us. So I'm going to magically switch to my tester account. I'm not logged out, fantastic. And there's our test, buddy.works demo, GitHub integration. So I'm going to confirm. I'm going to use my desktop with the old OS X. Let's say I use Safari for some reason, and we start the test. So first things first, I have some test cases here. These are all taken from the JSON file. I'm going to go through 2 of them just to illustrate my point. So let's say that I'm a tester. I have 58 minutes to finish this test. I should be able to do so in this time window. Okay, so first things first, I go to the some company page and I expect it to load under 1 second. Let's say it passed. I need to provide a proof of work, so I'm going to just drop, a sample attachment, submit, okay. Next case. Here I'm not going to be that forgiving, and I'm going to say that although I could see the Slack button, when I click the Slack button, I'm going to say that the prompt does not open. I'm going to submit, and overall, I cannot proceed with integrating any Slack channel if the prompt does not open, so I'm going to fail with the result of couldn't see the prompt. And I submit. Again, I need to provide some attachment. I'm going to provide a sample PNG file on my computer and submit the test case result. So let's say that during the testing, I noticed an issue. An issue not really tied to any of these test cases, just something I noticed when I was browsing through the application. When I was doing exploratory testing, if you will. So I'm going to add a new issue. I'm going to copy paste my sample data, which I prepared beforehand. So let's say we're going to go into payments, scary. These are going to be steps to reproduce. And let's say the actual result is an error message stating that vendor account doesn't have confirmed email. And well, the expected result, I should be able to send my money. I own my money, even if it's on your platform. And let's say that it happens all of the time because I couldn't successfully transfer my money. So again, I'm going to add my attachment. It can be very well, a video, it can be a crash log, a TXT file, your choice. I'm just doing photo because it's simple. And I'm going to add my issue. Okay, so what happened on the GitHub right now is that 2 issues have been connected to my pull request. And I can already see their previews, so let's see the issue first. Okay, so let's see. Summary, it's impossible to make transactions, sure. I see actual result, I see expected result, I can see a screenshot on our platform. I see reproduction steps, and the most important, I can see when this was reported and the tester environment. There's one more tiny detail that you might have not noticed, is that label called high. What high means is that we actually took this issue and we ran it for automated severity classifiers. So we have a machine learning model trained to classify severity of the issues. And it's been trained with hundreds of thousands of issues we've already reported. So probably it received a label high because I put money or payment or transaction inside, of the issue description. That's why we got high, probably. And when you go back, there's also the test case report for my failed test case. I won't dive into details. It's pretty much the same thing, summary, actual result, all kind of this stuff. So now what you have is a pull request with 2 issues connected to it. The status is going to still be pending because I believe there's like 1 hour window on the QA environment, which we're in. And on production, I think it's like a 4 hours window for some testers to join and report results. So we're not going to waste this much time for the final outcome. I'm just going to show you the final outcome based on some old pull requests I did. So in this case, I've already reported some issues, so I know this pull request won't pass, and it would display something like that. It would, display you a red cross with the message that tester have found issues in your app. And at least in my opinion, you should consider, disabling the merge in such case and working on resolving the bug. And if everything went well and there were no bugs found, because that's also a possible outcome, you will see this beautiful green tick with a state that success test has finished without any issues. So what we did right now is from inside of the GitHub and buddy, we were able to delegate the testing of our pull requests to a tester in the cloud, in this humble role, yourself truly, and receive the results from the cloud without leaving buddy or GitHub. So that's how the cloud testing, just as the cloud that you're actually used to, can be embedded inside your tooling. And it will be totally transparent. The people sitting somewhere on the world somewhere in the world, testing your application becomes an implementation detail. Most of your company doesn't even know they are there. So yeah, that's it. Maciek, I think we can go back to the presentation.
Of course, here you go.
Yeah, and of course, after that, it's demo time. There comes a thank you because that's everything I have prepared for you today. So thank you very much, everyone. Hope you learned something. Hope that was, a little bit interesting for you. And yeah, time for the questions. And behind, I'm going to, put this one salesy slide just in case you want to scan this beautiful QR code.
So before let's give people a moment so they can scan it, copy it,
Sure.
and I think that soon it will be available in the comments.
Mhm.
In the meantime, because in general this is something really interesting because we are always being learned about how automated testing is, let's call it kind of superior, because the human testing should be only used for those edge cases and things like this. And but you mentioned here two very interesting situations that automated testing just can't do. First of all, it was the fact of finding some unrelated issues
Yeah.
to um, to the testing suite itself. I mean, if we are having, let's say, a unit test, it will follow what it has to do, and that's it. We as humans are capable of finding things that we shouldn't do. I mean, we are very often doing things that we shouldn't do, but thanks to our curiosity, we are able to sometimes find those
Right.
things. And there was also one more aspect that was very interesting, at least for me. It was when you mentioned that because those testers are spread all over the world, they are using different devices, different, mm, not only devices, but it's also very often because of the language they use. So it sometimes means that the layout is different because left to right
Yeah.
versus right to left. So
Yeah.
there are many,
Factor.
things that we as developers, designers, that are put in some cultural area, let's call it like this, just don't care, don't know. And thanks to the fact that someone from an Arabic country will check through the Arabic version of the website, which is right to left, he will see that, okay, maybe on the first sight it looks okay-ish, but because
Mhm.
of everything, some things aren't as
Yeah.
clear as they should. So really, this is the very interesting part about this manual testing, and also the financial aspect. So
Right.
maybe yeah, because we are both from Poland, we are kind of cheap very often, and so
Well,
this
so
is,
goes the saying. So goes the
yeah,
saying,
yeah. But
especially in Krakow.
yes, I'm from Łódź, so there are also
Oh, okay.
uh, a lot of jokes about it. Uh, but the question is, okay, let's imagine I am a small startup from Łódź.
Right. Sure.
How much? I want to test
Simple question. How much?
how much? I want to test my small Facebook clone startup that I just
Of
started.
course.
So how much?
Sure. Okay. So you have one application to test. I assume it's going to be like medium-sized application, like usual size application. Now the question is, how often do you release? Let's say that you release weekly, because you're a small startup. Let's say you have those weekly demos. So if you have one app, medium-sized app, and you release weekly, it's going to cost you around $3,000, 3 to 4K, something like that, monthly.
Monthly.
Yeah,
So
of
this
course,
is a developer.
it's not a developer. Developer
I
earns a
mean,
lot more in Poland usually.
3K. I mean, there is a chance of finding one.
Sure.
Like I said, I'm from Łódź. I'm from Łódź. I will find.
You will find a poor student. All right, all right, all
Yes,
right.
I will find. Yeah, but still, so that's not much. That's not much because
No, it really isn't. It
in
really
in
isn't. And
theory I have access to, you mentioned 60,000 testers, right?
yep, right under your enter button.
And during and what are the default values? How many testers will test my application?
Well, by
Each.
default, it's going to be like 5 testers jumping in,
Mhm,
testing your application, at least, for this thing that we call the express testing.
mhm,
But well, the whole pricing depends on the credit-based model.
mhm,
And, the credits, as usual, the more tests you run, the more testers join, the higher credit price is. But also, the
mhm,
credit bundles, the more credits you buy, the cheaper everything is, and so on. So no, the number of tests is actually only the one factor. The other one, is how many applications do you have? Because your small startup might have, just one Facebook clone, but for big brands, like I don't know, let's say real Facebook, they have a lot of small applications. So for
mhm,
them, the cost might be bigger. Also, for example, if you release 5 times a day, let's say, you're in this DevOps elite circle that release 5 times a day, at least, then it means that you're going to need testing 5 times a day. So obviously you're going to, to use more services. And,
mhm,
that's obvious. Also, like, you might care about your test suite. You might not always care about the exploratory testing. So reporting the issue that was not directly connected to the test cases. It also
mhm,
depends. Like, you can tell us, like, no, just do the test cases. You can tell us, go around, explore a bit, see what you can find. We even, get some weird requirements, like, testing a VR devices or augmented reality stuff. It gets cool. It gets cool pretty fast. And, if you want testers only from one country, it's also achievable. If you want only one device, sure, everything's manageable. Sky's the limit. But, for simple
Okay.
SaaS, from Łódź, given, some Polish discounts, yeah, you're going to be fine with 2K.
Okay. So yeah, the thing that you mentioned, that the myth about pricing, it's not so obvious. So a bit different case. So again, I am this small startup from which I'm still creating my Facebook clone, and I got some money, and I am
Mm-hmm.
thinking, should I invest it in a new developer and push through automated testing, or maybe I should start with manual testing to start with? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, so to have developers go with only with adding new features
Mm-hmm.
and spreading the testing to, for example, to you, to global app
Mm-hmm.
testing. Would you
Right.
recommend such approach?
Well, first things first, you're going to hire a developer only to drive the testing adoption. It's going to be a tough recruitment because developers usually don't like writing tests.
I
But you're
think I only
familiar.
know two of them who like them.
All right, there's an exception to every rule.
I mean, they created the best framework, so
Oh, which
they
one?
look downing, for example.
Oh, all right. All right. Cool. Cool. Congrats, guys. Congrats, guys.
Yeah. So in short, you say that it's a much better approach,
Yeah.
especially at the beginning when you don't have when
So
I'm
let
trying
me
to get my
present you with
market.
an example. Yeah. So we used to have a customer that started testing with us, and we helped them, to reach the time to market a lot faster, than they would be otherwise, with dedicated resource to writing testing. And once they got into the market, they found the market fit, they started earning good money. They hired some engineers, that together with us were starting, to cover it with automated tests. And, slowly, the automated test approach, we're getting more and more covered on their side, but it was only possible because we watched their back when they were doing it. And
Mhm.
sure, they got to the point where they covered most of their application with automated tests, But still some weird edge cases, we still do it for them. And also, like, even let's say that you're 100% certain in your test suite that it works, it won't break, won't be a flaky test, pure miracle. We also do some value add services, because when you think about our testers, it's
Mhm.
60,000 testers worldwide, but it's also 60,000 people worldwide, which means some interesting stuff, like, for example, not only functional testing, but user experience testing. You have access to 60,000 people in different countries, on different devices. Great tool for
Yeah.
user experience testing.
Yeah,
Also,
that's
I don't know, targeted service still works. Lately, we even started doing this thing that we sit with the person who owns the company, some QA engineer from their side, and we help create them this test case suite. Because not each company have this test case suite, so we can even help creating one. As I mentioned, the sky is the limit here.
okay. Yeah, this is really really interesting, and so the moment when I will think about another Facebook clone, especially that Facebook isn't doing so well lately. So maybe
Oh, it
maybe there's
isn't.
a market.
Oh, it isn't.
Maybe there's a market or
Yeah,
more for a
and remember, Maciek,
Twitter
time to
clone.
market. Time to
Yeah,
market.
Twitter clone. I will do a Twitter clone that will be a bit
Not
better.
owned by Elon.
Not yeah, and yeah, we had one question, but I see that Adam from your team answered it. But I'll still put it because maybe not everyone saw it. Can you contact to the tester who has reported issue if you don't understand something in the issue? And I can already get
Thank you,
the answer
Adam.
from Adam. Yes, it is, but you work hard to ensure that the feedback is clear first time. For example, they submit evidence of different steps by step and picture.
Yeah.
So this is okay. So, Carol, this was the last question. I want to
Really?
thank you again. It was very interesting webinar. I really learned a lot from a kind of new world for me because
It is.
I'm
It really
also
is in the
one of
world.
those person who are about let's automate everything, automate for life and things like this.
Yeah, I know. I used to be as well before I joined Gas. I gotta be honest. But then it's automate everything versus build versus buy. And when you start talking about the time costs, things get different.
Yeah, and like with everything, the truth is somewhere in between because
Of course, of
we
course.
can't either automate everything or uh,
Manual test everything.
get, yeah, because even with the budget approach, we'll see that automating even the simplest test is for it and things like this.
It's
So
not that they are contenders. They can go hand in hand.
exactly, that's true. I mean, you showed so many examples how we can, as I said, go hand in hand because
Sure.
we have some automated tests. We are adding some manual tests because of reasons. Either we don't have a budget, or now we don't have time, or we
Yeah.
want to make sure we're going more global and we are more about learning the experience. And it's impossible to automate experience
So
testing. Let's be
actually,
honest.
when you want to hear some more stories about the learning experience,
Mhm.
there's some nice stories in the leading quality book, Maciek, if you'd be so kind, that
Yes.
actually our co-founders wrote. And you can get a free copy by scanning this QR code that our kind marketing team prepared for you. I
Mhm.
know usually, it's like, oh, webinar, of course, you gotta download an ebook because, ebooks, conversion, so on. Let me tell you, this book was actually Amazon bestseller. So it's not just an ebook. This is a legitimate book. And there are some very, very interesting scenarios. How, if it wasn't for the crowd testing, and if it wasn't, for this human person sitting on the other side of the world, providing you with cultural feedback, your business wouldn't scale. So
Whoa.
good read. You gotta trust me on this one.
I will for sure. So thanks for this. And remember to join our Buddy CI/CD group to be informed about all the upcoming webinars. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, also Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or maybe soon this clone of mine, but that's
Watch
it will work.
hashtags. Hashtag Łódź, hashtag Facebook.
Exactly, clone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hashtag clone.
Or maybe
Yeah.
FB clones, so no copyrights problem because
Yeah, good thinking. Good thinking.
Good thank yeah, thank you. So thank you again. Thank you everyone for watching. It was very great, and have a great day or night. It depends where are you from. So bye.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you.